Welcome to the Tech Sharmit podcast, where technology is not just news, but the roadmap to the future. This is a space where we explore the latest tech trends, AI, startups, gadgets, and the ideas that redefine the way we think. Leading this conversation is Amit Sharma, globally recognized as Tech Sharmit. A technologist from Bharat, Amit brings an Indian perspective to the global technology landscape. With deep technical expertise and strong industry insight, and for his contributions and impact within the global tech community, he has been recognized with several prestigious honors, including Google Developer Expert, Microsoft MVP, IBM Champion, and Planet Mainframe Influencer. Through this podcast, he shares practical knowledge, real-world perspectives, and globally relevant thinking designed to help you stay ahead in an ever-evolving technology landscape. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the Tech Sharmit channel to stay updated with future episodes. And if you're looking to level up your skills, don't forget to explore the Tech Sharmit digital course book in the description box, where you'll find thousands of free programming courses curated to help you grow as a developer. So plug in your headphones and join us as we begin today's episode of the Tech Sharmit podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sharmit podcast. Today I'm joined by another special guest, Mattias Karlsson, who is joining us all the way from Sweden. If I talk about Mattias, then he is one of the well-known DevOps and developer tools Microsoft MVP, an open source contributor, community and conference organizer. Over his career, he has worked as a developer, architect, product manager, and IT technician. So today in this episode, we will talk about how to build the systems across different industries and regions, why integration is one of the hardest challenge in IT, and what good DevOps really look like beyond the tools. But before we proceed further with this podcast, I would like to thank Matthias for joining us today in this episode. And now I request you to please initiate the discussion by telling us a bit about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Mattias Karlsson. I'm from Gothenburg, Sweden, on the west coast of Sweden. And I'm a father of two teenagers and a husband of one. And I'm really interested in IT and development, but also I do downhill mountain biking and a little bit going nature and things like that. So that's who I am.
Okay. All right. So, we all know, Matthias, that you have worn many hats, which include developer, architect, project manager, IT technician. But if you had to introduce yourself just as a person beyond those LinkedIn titles and accolades, so how would you introduce yourself as a person?
Well, I think I'm a person of many hats because I'm in general, like I've been on many different journeys with startups and in life, which means that in startups you have to solve what's at hand. There's no one else that can do it. Like you have to be agile and you have to be so that's why you have to there's like, well, we're a small team when you start, and then the journey you grow, and you have to change positions depending on how the circumstances change. And also that's in life, like when you get children, life changes and you have to adapt to those things. And I think that's why you, with experience, because I've been doing this for a while now.
Okay. So, if we particularly talk about your professional journey, then you have worked across e-commerce, banking, logistics, finance, even for stock trading as well, right? So,
Yeah.
what do you think, like from your experience, what's the biggest technical difference between building system in these different industries? Because you have worked with all industries, right? So, did you find anything similarity between these industries, or anything that is completely apart from each other?
Well, I think many of the differences aren't like technical. They are often you have faced the same problem, but they can have different solutions. So it could be that one company has a lot of money but little time. Another company has no money but lots of time, and some companies have both, which means that you can be faced with very similar problems that you have solved before, but you have to solve them in different ways. So that's, I think, is one, and that can also influence the technicals, because if you have little money, you might have to do your own technical stack. If you have a lot of money, you might have to buy into a stack initially, and then it changes with the company, because the company can be well, when you're a small startup, you have one solution. Then the company grows and you're hundreds of employees. Then you have to have another solution because it could be that license or too complicated. So often I think there are some things that are very similar, regardless of each company, a developer is a developer. But it could be things like there can be different laws, there can be different budgets, there can be different, and that's I think is the main difference. But we are developers, we're IT people, we're mostly solving the same problems, but it can be that the circumstances are different, and that's the major. Like people are different and things like that. So I think that's the major difference. But in general, I'm doing the same thing I've done for many years, but in different ways.
I'm sure like you enjoyed working with all these industries, different domains. But if you had to select one particular domain which is very close to your heart, where you'll get more opportunity to learn something or to share something, so which one is that particular domain across all these?
Well, I think my favorite domain is integration. So it's like being between like sorting so different systems or different people or different teams can communicate. Because it's something you learn with when you do with like if you want to be efficient or things that then you need to see like where are the friction between things. Can we make this can we make this automated or can we make things better for people, or can we just go to talk to the service technician that uses your software and see where are the friction points? I think that's where. So I'm really like to be like in between the processes and identify where are things that aren't working as well and what is working well, and see how can we make things work better. So I really like we need to be better thinking to how can we get systems to talk to each other? How can we get people to talk to each other? And also, how can we automate this process and have good contracts, both how we communicate with software and with people?
Okay. And like you have worked with these different domains, but not only the domains, you have worked across different cultures as well.
Yeah.
Whether you have worked with Nordics, Baltics, even China. So if we talk about geographical things, so what differences have you noticed in how like team approach technology? Because I'm sure they have their own mindset, they have their own approach to deal the problems. So did you find any differences between all these countries or regions?
Yeah, there's several differences. Like some things are culture, because they can be like how we approach problems, but it can also be how things like how we manage problems or how we order things. Or like in Nordics, we are very, I noticed like we're more focused on the end results and we give a lot of autonomy to developer to just solve the problems. Where some, it can be more, it's more like a hierarchical, like we need to do it in a certain way. But it can also be different. Like there are some things that are, if labor is cheaper, you can be that you, well, the most efficient process in this country could be an Excel sheet because it's cheaper than doing the
Yes.
development. But it can also be like, well, sometimes an SFTP server with a file put in the system is the cheapest or best solution, and sometimes it is this REST API. So there's are those kinds of differences, but can also be culturally, like when I worked in the US, they work 24/7, but in Sweden we work 8 to 5. Which can be a difference in, but also sometimes I know that it's not that we get less done. We're very efficient in those hours because if we're not done by 5, then we did something wrong. Like the plan was wrong or the so it's different there, and how sometimes how relaxed like a Swede is. Like if we set a deadline, we meet that
Yes.
deadline, and we're very culturally focused on that. But in some like European countries, it could be less so. It could be more an aspirational deadline, or it can be like things will solve themselves out, or and that can be hard culture. So and that's why like you have to be, if you go into a new country or a new culture or a new region, you have to be humble and you have to
Yes.
listen a lot before. You can never say there are some that say like I know Europe. You can't say you know Europe. You can't say you know Asia, because each country is their sovereign. They have their culture, they have their ways, they have their laws, and you have to be respectful and humble for the problem at hand. But also you sometimes have to turn it on the head, say like why can't we solve this? Like, if we can solve this very easily here, why can't it be just as easy here? So you have to be respectful, but also turn things on their head and see, does it have to be this way, or can we change it? So it's, but I mean, there's, it's a lot of differences, but also like many of the problems are the same. Sometimes it's just like a text file needs to land here, or a piece of an image needs to be displayed here, or whatever. So there's some problems, but it can be people problems that differ mostly.
Okay. And any challenges did you face regarding the tools and technology? Because as we know that in China, like they are working with their own, they have their own tools and application that you usually they do. So, like, did it cause any issue for you, or like was it easy for you to adopt those application and to use that?
Well, both yes and no. Sometimes constraints can be make things easier. Because if there's fewer ways to do things, then you can focus on the business problem sometimes. So it can be like, if you have like this blank slate, you can do it anyway. Then it's sometimes harder. So it depends. But I mean, it can be that you have to do things in a more cumbersome way, because you have to first, well, it has to land on this server first before you can go into the country in another way. Or it can be, so it can be that you can't choose that easy cloud service, or the data
Right.
needs to be, and that's not like unique to China, because it can become more that in the EU too, like in Europe, because it's more important with data sovereignty in many places, that people become more like the data needs to be here, and that's a limitation how you can do, because it could be that you have a service in the US that's a lot cheaper for this kind of some kind of process, but it can't leave China, we can't leave the EU, so you have to do it in the way that's lawful and possible. So it's both ways. It can be, sometimes it can make some things easier, because like if there's fewer choices, well, this is the way, and we just go over the project and solve the problem. But it can also be frustrating, like you can't do it the simple way. You have to develop the software yourself. It can be that you can't buy an off-the-shelf service. You have to develop the service yourself because the rules of law or things like that. Or you have to use older insecure protocols because that's the requirement there to be used. So that can be like the frustrating bits too.
Okay. All right. So, Matthias, like while doing some research about your profile, I found one very interesting thing that you often describe yourself as the glue between the systems. So,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting. So, could you please tell us a bit more about this definition, or the term or the phrase that you often use to introduce yourself?
Well, one thing is like I'm a consultant, so I'm working like with many companies in different positions, and one advantage is that I can almost play the person that I know nothing about me. Please tell me. Like I can be, even though I know I have years of experience, I can be the new guy at a new place and can ask questions that sometimes people can't answer. Like I know I worked in the automotive industry on one project. Like I could go down to the service technician and just ask, what are the problems? But I can see sometimes in big multi international companies they have really hard time to just talk to between departments, and that means like if you can understand the business, then you can be a better technician, you can be a better developer, because you can actually solve the problem that the business has. And that's usually why I've often focused very well. I focus to understand the business problem to be able to provide the best technical solution, not the other way around. I see so many people start with the technical stack, like we need this kind of cluster, we need it, but like what are the problem the business is having? And that's why like I try to be the glue, the people that can talk, person that can talk both to someone in the warehouse and someone in management, and see where can we meet to have the best solution for everyone, just not the best technical solution. Because the best, like, you can have a beautiful technical solution, but if it's not usable for a business, then it doesn't matter how advanced or how good it is. Then they won't use it.
Right. And you just we just discussed about the problems, right? So in 2026, do you still believe that integration is one of the hardest problem in IT? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, I think it's hard because like you need to communicate across boundaries,
Okay.
because you and integration can be between your own systems, but can also be across a third-party system, a government system, across borders, and then you have all these hard, like, how do we solve authentication? How do we solve that we know who requests what? How can we have trust between things? What are, like, how do we document so we know what's happening, when and where? And if you have scheduled things, you need to know, like, the order of things. So it's a very, and it can be like sometimes a black box, because you can be able to integrate to someone and you don't know what they're doing to the next step. So integration is hard, but also I think it's key to be successful. Like, if we can get automated, then we can have, like, consistent experience, we can lower ceremony, and we can have a more joyful experience in our daily life, like if you can focus on what matters. So if we have good integrations, like I see a lot of problems, like in healthcare, when they still print papers and then type those, the same thing they just printed out, someone else will type in a computer. Well, if we had a good integration, then it would just be a millisecond to transfer that data instead. And that could be simple things like that can be like good integrations, but they need to be secure. They need to be mindful so you don't send data to the wrong place. And all those kind of things are also things we need to consider, which make them hard. How do we audit data? Who can request what? But also, like, if we can ensure that the right person has the right data, we can really enable things to be good. So I think that's why, like, it's important, but it's also really hard to do right. Especially, like, we see, the data is the hardest part, because we don't want data to end up in the wrong place, because then that can be a really that can affect the bottom line for your company. Like, if you leak data, it could be that you cease to exist as a company, because you really need to take that in. And especially, you see every country now, EU, the US, China, they really take emphasis that your personal data needs to be treated right, your medical data needs to be treated right. So it's integration is hard, but it's important, and it can, done right, it can be a good thing for the business, for people, and for everyone.
Yeah, I am completely agree with this point here, because integration is something that will help you to build the proper system, and if you know about, and if you have implemented it properly, then you are good to take the benefits of the approach that you have designed there.
Yeah,
so
it can be like things that to take minutes can, like, things like days will take minutes or seconds, which can enable integration to enable new processes.
Yes, agree. It can enable the new processes. Okay, so Matthias, moving ahead, we will talk about some of your core competencies or the expertise where you have good. So we are just seeking for some advice from your end. So let's say if you had to give one thumb rule for the successful data or code migration, then what it would be? Like any particular rule that you wish to share with everyone.
Well, for that, I think if you can be tolerant for multiple versions at the same time, that would be the fun. Like, because if you can migrate the database before the code and the code still works, or if you can migrate the code with confidence before you migrate data and it's tolerant, I think that's the big thing. Like, if you can have a default value in the database for a new version, or if you can say, like, if this is null, I will still work, I won't explode. I think that's like, if you can both, like, the web application can work with an older version API and the web application can work with a newer version API. If you can have that in mind when you design the system, that you can be tolerant for failure, you can have one or two versions at the same time, then you don't need to be like the big bang migrations, or you can do you can do things controlled, and you can do it in small ways. Like, you can do it, like, I can deploy a little each day and have confidence that things, like, I have the tests in place, but also I can work with like, if this new field is missing, the application then won't explode, because it'll be tolerant and have a handle for that. That means you with confidence can do things. Well, you can even deploy during a working day. You don't need to schedule it to do it in a week and everything, but because you can do with feature flags or everything like that, you can do things. And I think that's the biggest, like, how well can you handle if something isn't working as you expect, essentially. And if you can be tolerant working even if things aren't as you expect, or have ways to detect that things aren't working expect and still work, then I think you have a more solid system and better integrations and better data migrations.
Right. Okay. Now, my second question, like as a DevOps expert and Microsoft MVP, how do you define good DevOps beyond just tools or the pipelines? Like how you look towards the DevOps now?
Well, I think the tools and pipelines are really important, but they shouldn't be the focus. They should be the focus of solving a problem you have. They shouldn't solve, like I see so often that people apply. We have heard that this technology X is great, so we will apply it, even if you don't have the problem it solves. And then I often see like it could be that you don't have the same problem as Google or Microsoft, or that it could be that you have another problem and then you need a different tool. So I think the most important part is to identify what are friction in my process and focus on that. But also involve, like DevOps isn't just tools, pipelines, whatever, it's also people. So you need to see, do you have a process that enables things to go more smoothly with lower ceremony? Or are our DevOps process actually increasing the friction? Because I've seen things that add too much checks and balances and too much control, and it means that it takes longer time to get things out because they added all this. Well, we need to have 2 people review this, and we need to have these 2 people do the approval of the deployment, and then it means like, oh, we have too much. Our process has been, it doesn't add value, it adds friction. I think that's the important. Let's focus on what's the friction in your company or in your team, and that should be the things you focus on. And then there are great tools to solve those things, but you need to come up with a problem first before you come up with a solution. And I see so many things like we've heard great things about GitHub Actions or about Azure Pipelines or whatever, and then they apply someone else's solution to their problem before they know what problem they're having. And that, I think, that's the main part. Like first you need to, and also like do it in increments. Do a little each day. It's better to do the one big thing in 6 months. If you stay like, because it can be that things change, and if you go like, I disappear for 6 months to develop something and then go back, well, the world kind of changed. So it's better to be, well, we have shorter sprints and actually deliver things and get feedback. And I think that's most thing that people miss. Like it's not done just because you ship it. You need to have feedback. You need to have telemetry. You need to actually ask the end user that used your software was this better or worse? Not just like, oh, I have no errors. Well, no errors can mean that no one's using it also. If no one's using it, you will get no errors. So it's important to have metrics. So actually measure how things are doing, but also like ask the business, like, what's your feeling? Was it better? Did it solve problems? Are we selling more cars, or are we producing more medicine or whatever? So I think you need to have metrics beyond the process.
Right. And these are some of the best techniques you just shared, or the approach you just shared, because this is something that anyone like working with any particular technology, if they follow these instruction, things would be very much easier for you. Because if you have, suppose you have a toolbox, but if you don't know what is your problem, then doesn't matter like what kind of tools you have in that box. But if you know the exact problem, then you are good to use any particular tool from the toolbox. So similarly, like here, if you know the problem, if you understand the problem, then you can easily identify what would be your approach and how you will approach or deliver the solution to that.
Yeah, and also like some things that increasingly comes now in projects is that like cost is actually a big factor.
Right.
And that can be, well, you can't choose this for this solution, this big cluster or this cloud service, because it's too expensive. And then you have to pick another tool, even if it's the best tool. It can be like, well, if they don't pay the bill, if they can't pay the cloud bill, it doesn't matter if it's a better solution, or if they can't. So that's something also like you need to, I think many, like both developers and operations and technicians forgot the cost part, and that can be really brilliant. So that's something that you need to be mindful of too.
Okay. And if we talk about the DORA metrics, because like what do you think, like what metrics actually matter in 2026 for DevOps success beyond the DORA metrics? So if we have to look into that particular reason, so what few metrics are there? Although like you have shared some metrics for
Yeah,
DevOps too.
yeah, I think one like the big metrics are actually like if you can. I think many forget to define what are the definition of something being deployed. Like,
Yes.
like doing the when do you know like have metrics for when is like just because you're like when is it shipped is many things that don't have. So when in the hands of users, but also have do you measure things like performance
Right.
and also just don't measure it when you deployed it. You have to measure it over time because that's also one thing that you notice sometimes. Like it works great on my machine, and then the like well when people use it, it will add data, and if you have something wrong with your like keep measuring because often I see that people forget after deployment. You need to keep measuring that the system is working and set the baseline like this is a good baseline, and if everything goes beyond that, that's something you need to investigate. Because if you like, there's a lot of difference in a database when it has one row versus have a million rows, and that can be that you have to optimize things, or it can be that you have to re-architect because there could be the one thing, and they shouldn't architect for future problems you don't know, but you should be able to measure to change when things going along because it can be that you need to get out sometimes. I need to get a feature out quickly, and that's could be the right way because you need it to get in the hands of the customer or business or quickly. But then you need to like any technical debt you put, you need to have a payment plan for that technical debt and see like, oh, I measured now it goes slower, then I need to maybe do some database indexing, or maybe I need to do a re-architect, we need some caching, or we need to have, but don't start with we need to optimize everything beforehand because you don't know how reality will be. It could be that the end user is using a different part of the system more than you thought about. So you
Yes.
need to continuously measure and need to continuously do metrics and also just talk to people because it could be the scenario I said that it could be that things go quicker because people stop using it, or it could be that things are like worse because it's so slow, so you get no errors. So you also need to be able to talk across departments. You need to measure also the soft values. So both the like the hard metrics like memory usage, what are a transfer, how many customers online, but also you need to find ways to define is it like if I ship a feature, how do you know that it's actually used and find measurements for that. So I think it's many levels, but also do things like static code analysis or security and ongoing things and keep an eye on. And I think that's the most important thing. Like you need to you're not done when you're shipped.
Right.
A good process needs to be continuous. You need to do it or like every day a little. It's like that's why sometimes I don't like sprints because it's more like a marathon. It's more like you need to do things a little each day to ensure that things are working. And that's sometimes a problem when you have some, like contracted things. When
Correct.
someone like was contracted to do something and then there's no plan, who's going to maintain this? And I
Right.
think that's something. So if you early on have a process for how to maintain things, then you will think differently how you architect it, how you design it. If the only goal is to ship feature X and then you're done, then you will design a system differently versus if you're going to take care of it after you ship it.
Correct. Okay. All right. So now, Matthias, let's talk about the support system because in industry, like we all know that behind every successful person, there is a support of network. So in your journey, like when you are looking back throughout your journey, so who are those key person in your life that had a defining impact on your journey so far?
Well, I think mostly I've done a lot of mentoring myself and things like, and I actually see like most of I've learned most of is actually being a mentor for students and things. So I'm mentoring 3 to 4 students each semester, and those have been like the junior developers have learned me so much because they question things and they're curious, but also been like people that like my first jobs were like many years ago are many of those like those that made impact are people I'm still in touch with because we that's safety net. So that's really like I've had people that are really good coders or really good at management, and those you have like the safety net roles. But I think that's the most important thing I think is like I'm really focused. Like if you want to learn, teach. And
That's perfect.
that's why I've like really learned a lot by just sitting down with students and doing so. I'm doing like a couple of schools here right now on their advisory board as a volunteer, and I think that's actually I would say the most impact people because if you ever worked in volunteer things, I think that must be good. So I've been volunteer both with like code-a-thons and things like that, and that actually what's most impacted me. I'm I've risen like fairly quickly to being like the partner and owner of a business, which means it's hard to climb more, but it's more fun to enable others at this point to be able to see other people grow, and that's actually why I think the people that impacted me most.
Yeah, here I think we are on the same page because I also believe that if you want to learn something, start teaching. Because when you are teaching something, you are grabbing the knowledge, right? You are going through the entire content, whether it's a talk or a session, whatever you are going to deliver. So you have to do some research on that. And again, like when you are interacting with the students or the IT folks, they will also ask a question that will also show you the right direction. Yes, this is the particular area we should do the analysis, and we have to figure out what is the best solution for those students. So this is something that really help, and I think everyone should start teaching because that is the way we are sharing the knowledge and also we are learning it. So that's the best
Yeah.
way to do it, I think.
Yeah, and also I'm one of the people like maintaining the local .NET user group, and just having conversations with people is
Yeah,
like you will learn so much. Like just having, if you can find situations when you can like have a dinner or break bread with someone and just like hear them out, that will you will get experience for free in a
correct.
way, like in a distilled way. And so that's I think like, and that's usually my tip for students. Like if you can find user groups or if you can find a scenario where other more experienced developers are, they usually are keen on telling you because they're proud of their work. So
Hmm.
if you can be like a bit forward but respectful, like and just listen to people, you will learn
Right.
so much. And that will also be like a net of context when you apply for a job or apply for internship or things like that. Like someone already aware of you is such because a key thing that will make you stand out.
Okay. All right. So, Matthias, we have plenty of things that we can discuss here, but we are short on time. So, I just want to take my last question, and it is related to the place you belong from. So, you live in Sweden. So,
Yeah.
what is one thing about Sweden that you wish to share with the rest of the world? About anything that is close to your heart, and you wish that everyone should know about it?
Well, I think something I really like with Sweden is that we're a fairly like compared to capital, like we're few people at a lot of space in a way, like, which means like if you really have like good nature and if you're like good to be outdoors or if you like to be on the sea or by the ocean or things like that, that's I think it's really I think we're respectful of nature and we have a lot of
Okay.
and that's something like I think people can if they visit here or if they go here, they should really see. Like we have this law that makes it's allowed for anyone to go out in the woods, even if someone else owns that woods. It's like if you're respectful of the woods, you're allowed to walk there. You're allowed to pick berries and mushrooms and things like that. And you need, but as long as you're respectful of it, I think that's one thing I like by this like Sweden. Like we enjoy nature, but we don't overuse it. We
Yes.
respect it, and we like it to like as we say we like it to be there for our children's too. Like it should be. And sometimes we fail, but the main agenda is that we want to be. Like nature should be there because it's essentially what's keeping us alive. And also like it's many problems that I've solved just by go down and walking by the river. It's like there's yeah, I think there's sometimes we are so preoccupied. So I think we're really good in Sweden at taking like what we call a break, even if it's just a coffee or we call fika in Sweden, like just having a short break and taking a pause and reflect. And it's almost like sometimes they see in other cultures they have like if you go to meditate, but almost like nature is a way to meditate, or just taking a hike or going out bicycling in the nature or something like that. It's I like I said I'd like to go mountain biking, and it's almost like you're in the moment, and I think many forget to be in the moment. You're always in the next moment often. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, and you again just shared one very important thing, that enjoy the nature, but don't try to overuse it, because
no,
otherwise
they
you
have to
will
be
get
like,
addicted.
yeah, and it's the same for like relationships and everything. Like you have to have a
Yes,
balance. Like I see something like you can't like overuse your contacts
correct.
or your friends or anything. You have to be. It has to be two strict things. And
Correct.
so the thing like you should use things you should be able to go out and see nature, but should leave it like the Boy Scouts say, like you have to leave it like in a better place than you entered it. So if there's litter, if you find something crash in then pick it up. And just a thing like if you see someone, I think it's good things like if you're out in the woods and you see a plastic bag, pick it up and take it home and throw it in the
Correct.
trash, and kind of like leave it so the next generation can have and have that in mind. Like how can we? And I think that goes for if you're a software developer, like if you go into a code base and you find they should leave it in a better state than you came. If
Correct.
there's some little thing you can fix, even if it's a little thing, do it and do it a little each day, and it become as a whole it become a better solution.
Right. All right. So, yep. Thank you so much, Matthias, for joining us today in this episode and for making this conversation insightful. I'm sure these things will resonate with so many other developers and IT folks. So, thank you once again for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.